Phoenix for Velshi across America. Here in Arizona, the Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego and the Trump-backed Republican Kari are battling it out for the state's open Senate seat. This is a race that could determine control of the U.S. Senate. For Gallego, that means reaching out to all voters, even if it means hiking to the base of the Grand Canyon. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard explains.
The Havasupai tribe, tucked into the crevices of the Grand Canyon. Its land and sacred waters renowned for this. Havasupai means people of the blue-green waters. The tribe here on the land more than 900 years before Arizona ever became a state, and now potentially crucial to electing its first ever Latino senator from the state, Democrat Ruben Gallego.
You win in Arizona by bringing as many people together to vote for you.
In August, a massive flash flood swept through the canyon and parts of the village, killing one person and damaging dozens of homes.
We were actually due to come before the flash flood that really affected the canyon.
The rushing waters, symbolic of the more extreme weather from climate change.
We have a diamond in the rough of the United States of America.
And it's why he's here with just 3 weeks until Election Day.
We don't have street lights. We only have trail. We only walk from and to the store and back home in our village.
We hiked with Gallego 8 miles down into the canyon to the village.
We're visiting and trying to visit all the 22 federally recognized tribes, but this tribe lives and resides at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So if you want to visit them, you want to talk to them about their tribal lands, their needs, their wants, you have to physically come down here.
Because the tribe is only down here at the bottom
Only
of the
down here at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, correct.
The indigenous vote helping tip the scale for Democrats in 2020 and 2022. The elections for president and governor both coming down to less than 17,000 votes. Native Americans make up about 5% of Arizona's population and historically favored Democrats.
It's always been Democrats. And mainly, I think tribal members really look at the issues with the environment.
One of those issues, uranium mining near the Grand Canyon that recently started again. There is staunch opposition within the village out of fears of irreversible spills that would taint the local waters and airborne contamination through inhalation, but also harm to the soil and food supply.
We have something really special here.
But that's the drinking water you guys rely on.
Yes.
And what did he say?
He said he was going to help us.
Gallego is running to replace retiring independent Senator Kyrsten Sinema in taking on Republican Kari Lake. She has also tried to court the indigenous vote, like Gallego marching last month in the annual Parade of the Navajo Nation, the largest tribe in the state, a community that has expressed frustration for neglect from the federal government.
I don't blame them. Both parties in D.C. have, frankly, been not very good for the people.
In a state known for its independent streak, the likes of former Republican Senator John McCain held reverence here over his relationship with the tribal communities.
Everybody voted for him.
John McCain?
My grandparents, my grandparent brothers, because he was a very good spokesperson.
Gallego, the Democrat from a very blue congressional district in Phoenix, is now taking steps, a lot of steps, to meet his state's expansive electorate.
You consider yourself a progressive. How do you describe yourself politically now?
Look, I think the same thing I've always been. I'm a fighter for Arizona. Sometimes that, takes me to different spectrums of the political world. But what happens, no matter what, is I'm always looking out first for Arizona, making sure that it gets what it wants and it needs and its representation.
Some excellent reporting from NBC's Vaughn Hilliard. Joining me now is the Arizona congressman himself, Ruben Gallego. He's the Democratic nominee for Arizona's open U.S. Senate seat. Nice to see you in person.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about this state. You heard some of the conversation that I had with those voters here in Phoenix, Republicans and Democrats. In this particular case, they were all voting for Vice President Harris and Tim Walz, and all voting for you. In fact, your race has now become, you've got I want to say a comfortable lead. I don't think candidates ever...
No comfortable lead until I win, actually,
no,
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're outside of the margin of error according to polling. Yeah. Tell me what's going on in the state right now, because the whole country is looking at certain particular states this year, including this one.
Look, Arizona is an independent-minded state. We're very Western. Want to be a free state, and I think a lot of people are seeing the stakes of this election, realizing that there's only really one way to go, and that's to make sure that you don't get people like Kari Lake and Donald Trump elected. Especially when it comes to abortion rights. It's on the ballot this year, and we had a very big scare at the beginning of this year when they tried to take us back to an 1864 abortion ban that had no exceptions for rape or incest. So People are voting their conscience and for their freedom this year.
Yeah, in fact, the Republicans on my panel were pointing that out, that this state's history of republicanism and conservatism suggests perhaps smaller government, and they don't think that these abortion restrictions fit in with their theoretical view of what conservatism is.
Absolutely. You know, I think Democrats, Independents, and Republicans all agree that we want personal freedom, and they're not seeing that on the ticket from the other side.
Right. The other issue, and I know because you're talking to a lot of Republicans,
Yeah, I do, yes.
There's a lot of your support is coming from Republicans. This constant election denial. Remember, your opponent has not conceded her last race for governor from 2022. That is seeming to really be rubbing people the wrong way.
Well, look, it rubs people the wrong way because we are used to good government here. You know, when Kari Lake is attacking people for not certifying the election or for rigging the election, she says she's actually talking about Republicans, because it's Republicans that actually certified the election here in Arizona. Republican governor, Republican county supervisor, Republican recorder, and now they have death threats against them. They've had to get personal bodyguards. Some of them have PTSD from all the trauma that she has caused, and all because she just wants power. She just wants to do whatever it takes for her to win and doesn't care who it hurts. But at the end, it's Arizonans that get hurt.
You actually, I think you mentioned that it's like it's all the bad stuff of Donald Trump and none of the good stuff.
I mean, I think the biggest problem is a lot of people give Donald Trump a lot of excuses. Like for Kari Lake, she doesn't get a lot of excuses because people have known her forever. She's been on TV here and they trusted her. And as soon as she got a little bit of power, she misused that trust. And now she does it to personally benefit her. She has nonprofits that she won't say what she's raised money into. She's gotten sued for defamation. She admitted to lying about another fellow Republican, county recorder Richer. And again, people just don't trust her anymore. And if you can't be trusted, then people won't vote for you.
County recorder Richer, not a name that is known around the country.
Yeah.
But this is a person who's administering the elections here in Maricopa County and has received death threats.
Yes. Yes, he actually defeated a Democrat because he didn't think the Democrat was actually running the county recorder's office correctly, and then went in there and administered the election in 2020 and in 2022. And because he did it correctly and by the books, he was accused by Kari Lake and other Republicans of being a sellout, treasonous. And he ended up getting death threats to the point where he had to have security at his house. I know, because he's one of my neighbors. And when I walk my dog or go out for a walk in it, I had to see SUVs in front of his house. That's horrible. And that's not what Arizona's used to. Arizona's used to Democrats and Republicans living together, working together, sometimes fighting, sometimes disagreeing, but never getting to the caustic level of what Kari Lake has caused here in Arizona.
Talk to me about immigration. It is something everybody talks about in the country, but people in Arizona really have an intimate relationship with for whatever side of the issue they're on. This is something that some Arizonans thought that this congressional bill that got torpedoed made sense.
Yes.
It was not something a lot of Democrats loved everything about, nor something a lot of Republicans loved everything about, but it was forward momentum.
Yeah, and we're very realistic about the border, more so than other states, because we actually are here. From where you are right now, it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes to the border, and we have a lot of border exchanges, both that are positive and negative. Billions of dollars worth of trade, jobs connected, but of course then you have the problems at the border with asylum seekers coming and illegal immigrants. But in the vein of, kind of John McCain, Jeff Flake, we understand you need to have a compromise to get this done. And that's what we saw in that bill. That it wasn't perfect, but we need to get something done, and we're going to let politics get in the way. And that's when it was like cynical and craven politicians like Kari Lake who said absolutely not. And the only reason they did it, it's not because they didn't think it was a good enough solution or they didn't think that they thought there's a better bill coming later. It's because they need a border problem.
Yeah.
But they need the border problem for political reasons, but yet our border communities are still hurting every day.
We had Jeff Flake on earlier in the show. We had Mayor John Giles yesterday from Mesa. You've got a permission structure in this state for Republicans to vote for Democrats, and they're actually quite enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Have you got an issue with Democrats who are unenthusiastic? Because that's happening around the state, around the country, where there are people who prefer Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but they're thinking they might just not vote this time around.
Well, I would say there has been a marked difference since Vice President Harris got into this race. We do see a lot more excitement. I see it at the doors. I see it in our offices, people volunteering. So I can't speak for other parts of the country, but we certainly see just a lot more enthusiasm, especially among young Latinos and Latina voters. And you've got to remember, Arizona's a very young Latino state. So I don't see that happening. I do think that, Arizona, you got to remember, there's 200,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats in Arizona. Right. So we have to have a full coalition of winning. We have to have excitement from our base voters, as well as we have to have crossover support from independents and Republicans. And why Vice President Harris is still in the hunt here and tied in a lot of polls and or winning is because she's being able to put that coalition together.
Ruben Gallego, good to see you. We've had many conversations, but it's nice to finally meet you.
Welcome to my backyard. I live a mile away from here.
We love this state. Now we'll be back. Thank you.
Yes.
Ruben Gallego is a Democratic congressman running for Senate in Arizona.